The wheelchair was busted, twisted metal and broken hope. But the single dad knelt down, bare hands on cold concrete, and said gently, "Let me see what I can do." He didn't ask for payment. He didn't ask for thanks. A week later, the sky above his house thundered with rotors. And what stepped out of those helicopters changed everything. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. It wasn't just another cold morning. The sky hung heavy with gray, and the wind sliced through faded jackets like it was personal. But Jack Henderson, 33, wasn't thinking about the weather. He was thinking about lunch, or rather, how he'd split one ham sandwich between himself and his 6-year-old son, Noah. They were at the community clinic parking lot because Jack was picking up spare parts for an old HVAC unit he was fixing for a neighbor. Noah was tracing circles on the fogged-up window of their beat-up truck when Jack spotted it. An older man, mid-50s, military jacket, silver buzz cut, struggling near the sidewalk. His wheelchair had collapsed on one side. The man's face was tight with pain and frustration. Without hesitating, Jack said, "Noah, stay here, buddy," and jogged over. "Sir, you okay?" he asked. The man barely looked up. "No," he muttered. "Damn thing's bent again. Back wheel's jammed. Should have just stayed home." Jack squatted down, eyes scanning the damage. "I do some repairs on the side. Mind if I take a look?" The veteran blinked at him, surprised. "You don't have to." "I want to," Jack said simply. The next 10 minutes were a blur of grit and effort. Jack's hands were red and raw from the cold, fingers dark with grease. But he worked like he'd done this 100 times. Because he had. Not wheelchairs, but broken things. Broken things were his specialty. Noah watched from the truck, nose pressed to the glass, as his dad straightened a support bar and tightened a bolt using only a rusted wrench and creativity. "There," Jack finally said, straightening up. "It's not perfect, but you should be able to roll home safely now." The man tried it. The chair moved smoother, sturdier. This is incredible," he whispered. "Jack Henderson," he said, offering his hand. The veteran grasped it with surprising strength. "You just saved me a trip to the ER. Name's Richard. Richard Cole. I owe you one." Jack smiled. "Just pay it forward, all right?" Richard paused, looking him dead in the eye. "I don't forget kindness." Jack just nodded. It was nothing to him, just a Tuesday. But Richard Cole wasn't just some veteran in a busted chair. And Jack was about to find out exactly what that meant. It was exactly 7 days later. Same time, same cold sky. Jack had just gotten Noah ready for school, layering his son's tiny frame in second-hand jackets and gently wiping crumbs from his cheek. They were laughing about a made-up dinosaur named Noah-saurus when the rumble began. At first, Jack thought it was thunder. But then the dishes rattled in the sink. The air grew heavier. He stepped onto the porch, shielding his eyes. 3 military helicopters hovered above his small neighborhood like watchful predators. His jaw tightened. What the hell? They descended, not at a hospital, not at a base, right into his overgrown backyard. Noah clutched his dad's leg. "Daddy, are we in trouble?" Before Jack could answer, black SUVs rolled up silently behind them. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains. Cell phones popped out. Jack stayed still. Then the side door of the center helicopter slid open. Out stepped Richard Cole, no longer in his worn jacket, but in a sharply tailored black uniform with 3 rows of medals across his chest. He wasn't just a veteran. He was a retired 4-star general. Jack stared, dumbfounded, as uniformed officers flanked Richard. A woman in a navy suit approached with a tablet in hand. Her earpiece blinked. "Mr. Jack Henderson?" He nodded cautiously. "You've been summoned by the Department of Defense." Jack's stomach dropped. "For what? I'm just a mechanic." Richard stepped forward, smiling like a man who'd waited years to repay a debt. "You said to pay it forward. I took that personally." He turned to the officers. "Bring it out." Another helicopter hissed as it opened. A platform rolled forward, and on it, Jack's patched-together wheelchair frame. Only now, it was 3D scanned, carbon-reinforced, digitally optimized. "Your repair," Richard said, "inspired a prototype. My team reverse-engineered it. Turns out you solved something our engineers couldn't. With a wrench." Jack blinked. I didn't mean to." "You don't understand," the woman in the navy suit said. "We've had dozens of injured soldiers on wait lists because their chairs were unstable on terrain. Your fix, it works on gravel, grass, even rubble." Jack looked down at his hands. The same hands that changed Noah's diapers. The same hands that once held his wife as she passed. And now, "I just helped a guy get home," he whispered. Richard nodded. "Exactly. That's the kind of man we want." Then he said the words that hit like thunder. "We'd like to offer you a contract. Full development, engineering mentorship, and funding. Not a job. A partnership." Jack choked on air. "Why me?" Richard's gaze was steady. "Because real strength doesn't come from blueprints. It comes from heart. And you've got it in spades." Jack didn't sleep that night. Not even close. After the helicopters left, after Noah's wide eyes finally shut in his arms, after the neighbors' whispers faded, Jack just sat at the kitchen table, elbows on wood, head in hands. A big government partnership? Military-level contract? Funding? It didn't feel real. It didn't feel like something he deserved. Because there were things about his past no one knew. Things he worked hard to bury. The next morning, the news vans came. Not one, 3. Parked across the street. Cameras pointed, reporters shouting his name. "Mr. Henderson, how does it feel to have the U.S. military adopt your design? Is it true you're working with General Richard Cole personally? Are you really just a mechanic, or have you been hiding your background?" That last one cut, because it wasn't wrong. Jack didn't answer, just pulled Noah closer and got in the truck. But the weight in his chest only grew heavier. By evening, 2 men in suits showed up on his porch. Not news, not fans, Homeland Security. "We're here about your military file," one of them said. Jack froze. "I don't have a military file." He lied. The taller agent raised an eyebrow. "That's interesting. Because someone accessed it this morning from the Pentagon. Clearance, black level." Jack swallowed hard. His hands started shaking. Not from fear, but from memory. He had joined the Army at 17. A kid with no father, barely a mother. But he'd excelled. Too well. They'd recruited him into a program that didn't officially exist. And when he finally got out, after that mission, he swore he'd never go back. Not even as a contractor. "I want this off the record," Jack said. The agent nodded. "Of course." Jack stared him down. "I did one thing I was proud of. One kind act. Now you're digging into a part of me I escaped from." "General Cole isn't just repaying a debt," the other man said softly. "He's trying to pull you back in." That night, Jack found Noah asleep in bed, with a drawing crumpled in his fist. Stick figures of Daddy, me, and a man in a helicopter labeled Old Soldier. Jack knelt beside him and whispered, "I did everything to protect you from my past, kid. But maybe it's time I stop running from it." because the world wasn't giving him a choice anymore, and he had no idea what was coming next. Jack arrived at the military base, escorted by black vehicles that cut through traffic like wolves in a herd. The silence inside was louder than the sirens outside. He wore his old denim jacket, the one with torn stitching and motor oil stains. He refused to suit up just because someone handed him a golden ticket. When he stepped into the glass briefing room, General Richard Cole stood waiting, flanked by 3 senior engineers and a man Jack didn't recognize. Sharp eyes, colder presence. "Jack," Richard greeted, "I owe you a personal apology." Jack's brows furrowed. "For what?" Richard sighed. "I didn't tell you everything." He gestured to the screen behind him. It lit up with surveillance footage. Jack repairing the wheelchair. Multiple angles. Zoomed. Tracked. "You were being watched?" Jack asked, voice rising. "You were already flagged," the cold man said. "You've been flagged since 2016. You vanished after the Laos operation. No trace, no contact." Jack's jaw clenched. "Because I lost half my unit and was ordered to lie about it. You think I'd come back after that?" Richard's face darkened. "I didn't know they buried it. I found out years later." "You didn't just disappear, Jack. You were erased. They called it an unrecoverable liability." The words hit like a punch. Jack stared at the footage, at himself, kneeling on the sidewalk, helping a man he thought was just a stranger. "That wasn't for attention," Jack said through gritted teeth. "That was me being human." Richard nodded. "Which is why I knew you were the one. But the government doesn't just want your prototype now. They want you. Back on black level ops, design, engineering, tactical repair. They're offering immunity for your entire record." Jack looked to the engineers. They looked away. "This wasn't kindness," he whispered. "This was a test. The chair, the media, the contract. It was bait." The cold man leaned forward. "We're offering redemption." "No," Jack said. "You're offering ownership." He stood, rage boiling beneath the surface. "I'm a single father who fixed a broken wheel. That's it. I'm not a ghost anymore. I've got a son. I've got a life." Richard didn't flinch. "We're not forcing you. But if you walk out, we shut the program down. No new chairs, no soldier benefits, no rollout." Jack looked him dead in the eye. "Then you never wanted to help them. You just wanted me." And then he left, stormed out of a government base with 2 agents scrambling behind him. But it wasn't over, not even close. Because that night, someone broke into his house. And what they stole wasn't money. It was Noah's sketchbook. Every drawing, every note, every page. Gone. Jack didn't call the police. He didn't have to. He knew exactly who took Noah's sketchbook. It wasn't about the paper. It was about what was in it. Because a week ago, Jack had let Noah sit beside him while he fiddled with new designs. The kid, with his crayon-streaked fingers, had doodled alongside him, only instead of scribbles, Noah had mimicked his dad's work. Wheels, hinges, stabilizers. Some drawn upside down, but accurate. Jack hadn't noticed at first, until now. Now the government had. They hadn't just come for him. They'd come for his son. He drove like a man possessed, straight to the same base. But this time, he didn't wait for clearance. He crashed through the gate in his rusted truck and was tackled before the wheels stopped turning. By the time Richard arrived, Jack's lip was bleeding. "You touch my boy," he snarled, "and I'll burn this whole program down." Richard looked genuinely stunned. "Jack, what are you talking about?" "You took his sketchbook. You're stealing my son's future before he can spell future." Richard held up both hands. "That wasn't me. I swear it. The cold man from earlier stepped in. It was me. Jack lunged, restrained again instantly. Why? The man adjusted his collar calmly. Because that child is either a savant or you've taught him more about mechanical balance than half our contractors. Jack spat blood. He's 6. He's a kid who likes to copy his dad. He's leverage, the man said flatly. You want to protect him? Then work with us. That's when Jack saw it clearly. This wasn't about redemption. It was about control. They never cared about veterans, or chairs, or kindness, just utility. Jack stared at Richard. You said this was personal. You said you owed me. Richard's eyes flicked to the cameras, then to the guards, then back to Jack. And slowly, deliberately, he nodded once. Get him out, he said. What? The cold man barked. I said... Richard's voice boomed, soldier strong. Get him the hell out of here, and return his son's drawings, all of them. 3 hours later, Jack and Noah sat quietly in the living room. A small envelope sat between them. Inside were the sketchbook pages, returned, folded, untouched. Noah leaned into his dad. I don't get it. Why did they take it? Jack smiled softly, hiding the storm still raging behind his eyes. Because they saw what I see every day, that you're special. You too, Noah said. You fix broken stuff. Jack looked at his son, the boy he'd fought everything to protect. No, he said, voice cracking just a little. We fix broken stuff. Together. Epilogue. Months passed. Jack didn't sign the contract. But he did something better. He opened a local foundation using donated money from quiet places for veterans needing wheelchair repairs. No contracts, no politics, just help. And word spread, not because of press, because of people. People like Richard, who still visited in civilian clothes, no medals. And people like Noah, whose tiny hand once sketched a wheel that could hold a soldier steady again. Jack never wanted to be a hero. He just wanted to be a good dad. And sometimes, that's what changes the world.